name is Randi Stebbins, and I am the head of, I just finished my title in communication at AGR Inventory, and I'm the moderator of these events. Joining me today is Sigrún Gunnhildardóttir and Halla Hjartardóttir. Sigrún and Halla are really at the core of our AI team. Sigrún is the Chief Product Officer here at AGR Inventory and has been working on the development side of AI. And then Halla is our head of integrations here at AGR Inventory, and then her focus has been on the integration side and how AI can help with integrations. So welcome, Sigrún and Halla. Thanks for joining me today. Is there anything else you wanted to add to the introduction?
I think not. No, just excited to join.
Great, and I am excited to have you here. So one reason I wanted to bring you on to this live stream is that we were all a part of the AGR Inventory Summit, which is targeted towards users back in May. And it was such a great event. There were so many people who joined us, and I really appreciated both of your presentations that you gave during that event and your focus on development in general and integrations in general, but also on how AI is really impacting each of those fields: product development, product innovation, and integrations, and connecting to ERPs. And also, this has been quite a bit of discussion, so internally, and really, I think everybody at AGR is quite excited about what your teams have going on both sides. So I'm going to start with you, Sigrún, and I'm just going to start with like a quite pointed question. If you could really just sort of distill or compress everything you've seen change in AI in the past year, about where AI is creating the most meaningful impact for supply chain and inventory management, what would be your insight?
Yeah, I mean, it's a direct but a very broad question, actually. And I think for supply chain or other fields, it's the same. We are all going through this huge change. AGR has always been an AI company. We have been experimenting and developing AI functionalities for years, but last year things have really accelerated and we have started to move a lot faster. And what I see with our users, but also like with our team, what is happening is a lot of individuals are really experimenting and accelerating and working, maybe doing double amount of work compared to what they did. But the challenge we are in now is how do we operationalize it? How do we change our teams, our structures, how we work to really benefit as organizations? How do we get everything to work together? Because it's crazy times. Everything is changing, and I feel like, I imagine it's pretty similar to just when the computers started to pop up at offices. Like everything is up in the air, like what is your job now? What should I be doing? If what I have been doing, AI is really good at, what do I do? And we see this question in all like supply teams, but in all teams in general, I think. And I think it's been a roller coaster this last year for many people. And so we see really individuals excelling, others very curious, but wanting to get going. And we are really at the place where organizations are discussing, like, how do we operationalize this as a whole? That really stands out to me, the people part of it. How do we change, like, who am I and what do I bring to the table with all these new capabilities?
And what about you, Halla? What have you seen change in the integrations aspect, let's say, in the past year?
Yeah, I think mainly for us in the integration section, historically we've dealt with being what causes the most friction in terms of onboarding. It can be really hard grasping the scope of what data you need, where the data resides, permissions to data, all of this highly technical stuff, which our customers are really often dependent on their ERP or IT partners to do. The shifts that we've seen, like starting back for 5 years or something, we can definitely see that we're now able to break so many technical barriers that used to be really time consuming in terms of implementation and onboarding our customers. And now we're kind of we're able to empower them to take care of such technical stuff by breaking technical barriers with AI. So that all of a sudden what used to be impossible for someone who's maybe the system owner or a purchaser using the system, now they're all of a sudden able to step into the role of what an IT partner used to do. With the tools that we have kind of developed in HR to ease the onboarding and translate technical scope into promptable questions and configurations through our product and the onboarding cycle. So I think,
I think that that's something that's really good to pull out because, Sigrún, to build on what you said, a lot of people, and naturally enough, associate AI to their own position, their own use, their own understanding. And we have, a wide variety of people in the supply chain joining us today. Maybe they don't see how it impacts the IT side of the business, right? And the IT side of the business may still be like, oh my gosh, I can't deal with one more long integration process, or I can't, and I think it's really important because any change like this, that impacts humans, you've got to deal with the human side of it. And so it's really important to be like IT's team or human, or even if you don't have a human there, that you're just kind of running it all yourself. It's really not like it used to be. And AI is one way, like AI has really accelerated and eased the whole integration process, which hopefully, and we'll talk about AI like panic and anxiety, which hopefully at least brings down the anxiety or the worries about how long an integration process can be and how complicated it is and how in-depth. I will point out that one feedback we get from customers quite often is still like, no matter how good the AI integration is, their data still needs to be up to date, and we have quite a few case studies on our website where they point out like, integration was actually good for us because it forced us to get our data cleaned and up to date, so we could use a system like AGR or even their ERP more efficiently. So I just want to, point that out to people that that's part of the process, and AI probably can help, but it's still a very human side of things. And to keep with the human side, both of you really spoke compellingly in the summit about the people side of things, right? And how important it is to focus on the humans that are using systems, that are still running the supply chain, that are using AI and all this. So Sigrún, you focused on helping them do their jobs better. Like, why do you think that sort of message is true and important?
I think working in supply chain is in general, a lot of firefighting, reacting. Things are constantly shifting and you find yourself constantly checking if something has changed because you're working with a forecast. Forecast is only a prediction of what is going to happen, and then real world happens and you're constantly monitoring. We focus on utilizing AI to just help the purchaser or the supply chain teams really get their day in control, automating the things that they don't really need to be doing repeatedly and lifting up things that can help them. Because we know it's a very hectic job and we see huge potential with AI helping smooth and flag some of these things and changes that constantly go on. So,
and what about you, Halla? You mentioned that. Is anybody else getting a weird feedback loop? I never know if it's just me. Sorry to break, but I just wanted to make sure there wasn't something technical. You mentioned making it easier for somebody to connect, but a big thing that we talked about in the summit along with this was trust. You have to trust that the data is flowing. You have to trust it's the right data. So how does AI and all of that play into this issue of trust that your data is flowing correctly, trust all of that? And what steps do you suggest people do in order to build up that trust?
Yeah, I think what you covered pretty well and what also was like the highlight of the summit is that AI can be a great accelerator, but the accelerator won't work correctly unless you have your data properly set up and cleaned and available in the places that it should be. So just in thinking about like AI replacing humans and so on, I think we should rather be thinking about this now that the task of driving high stake decisions is getting easier because there's just, disruptions are exceeding in the world. Everything is kind of increasing in complexity. There's more data flowing from more places, but this also means that now you have this accelerator on top of your data, which you can kind of use as your assistant. The only thing you kind of have to make sure of is that the data is proper. That's the ground. And now you can have all of these specialized assistants in agents and AI solutions, which can help you highlight, okay, what are my high stakes decisions? What is it that me as a professional, as an expert, what do I have to be focusing on, and where can I really drive these decisions while I let automation take care of these low stakes ongoing tasks that just run the same cycle every week, every day, and every month? I think that's really now where the value lies, to be able to trust what can just run and doesn't go out of hand, and then be able to use this as a huge opportunity to just drive value right through your infrastructure.
So I want to spin on that a little bit, Sigrún, before I have you ask. And this is something I've been saying a lot. We had a chain reactions. Well, the first one was about data, right? And something we talked about is like data itself is just a thing, right? It's just a thing. It's numbers, calculations, it's represented in certain ways. And there's always a lot of talk about data and like it's this like, I don't know, almost holy thing, right? But it's just calculations and numbers and things like that. And that what really matters is how the data is presented to people, how people understand the data and what they do with that. And Sigrún, you talked in the summit about easing that whole chain for people with AI. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, because I think that is actually what I want to add in to the trust conversation. Because supply chain calculations, I mean, they have always been complicated. And whether you have AI functionality driving it or not, it's complicated logic because there are complicated scenarios. And like the challenges we have been having for years is with these implementations, like why would you trust these complicated calculations that you don't understand? Why wouldn't you just go with your gut and order the number you want? And what AI is really helping with, and what is with like the advancements in LLMs and natural language processing, it's to explain calculations in a human language. So like when you are uncertain, you can just ask, like, why are you suggesting this weird number? I mean, that might be your feeling. And now it's really easy to ask or to develop ways for AI to explain this much better than it used to be possible to do. And it used to be a big project to explain a certain part of a calculation, which HR has always had a focus on, like having all data available in an intuitive way in front of you, graphically, and in whatever way that makes it processable to the user. But AI really, really helps with this, putting data into context and into human language. I think this will accelerate these high-stake decisions because they are high stakes. You are making a huge decision, and we understand that it's difficult to trust a black box calculation, whether it comes from AI or where it comes from. You want to understand where it's coming from before you trust it. And I think it's so important in all technology, but with all this acceleration and data flowing around, you can't keep up. This is both just really important, but also much more doable with this new technology. So that excites me.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to address, I mean, we've been talking about trust, but not trusting comes a lot from, being scared or being anxious or, these gut feelings that like something's off, Sigrún, like you mentioned. And so I do want to cycle maybe now around to the sort of AI anxiety part of like, how do you, interacting with customers and other teams, how do you deal with this sort of anxiety of, well, it's just going to take over my job. Like, we're just going to automate everything and it's going to take over my job. And I think Halla, like, I want to start with you on this because I think that for the IT people, maybe is quite prominent. If now we're aiming to, or in the future, we'll be able to integrate and connect with one click, it is definitely easing their lives. 100%. But like, how do you deal with the flip side of that? Like, well, I'm not going to have a job if anybody can click this button.
Yeah. A really good question and highly relatable. It just feels like every moment, every day now, everyone's like please pick up your game with AI, make sure that you are staying ahead or you will be left behind. All of this can just seem a little overwhelming, but I like to think about it as if you just think about how much of the world is really using AI, we are in a big echo chamber. We're just in this technical space, and this is what drives this technical space at this moment and will continue to do so. And it's just another technology. And it's important to be realistic of where talent is moving. But I think in terms of like dealing with the flip side of this, there's always going to be new progresses of how to utilize AI and how to make sure that your infrastructure can utilize AI. So I like to think about it as a promotion for the entire workforce, is that your time is less manual stuff and more like big picture architecture imaging of what we do today, making sure that your systems are compatible with AI infrastructure so that you're able to utilize these solutions. But it's kind of just as important as it used to be to not get into tech debt, making sure that you're always on the top version. But now the effort required to be like compatible with AI leveraging is just making sure that every aspect of your infrastructure across all systems is documented, has agentic context. The role is really just shifting towards more expertise in terms of AI systems rather than focusing on this one small part that used to be just like my focus is now on making sure that the ERP system is up and running.
What about you, Sigrún, thinking more about, let's say, category managers or buyers or like supply chain team leads? How do you help counteract, or not, it's not our job necessarily to emotionally manage other people, but these are blockers to people, let's say, trusting the AI, trusting our system or any system. How do you conceptualize that and think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've always been saying, like, I'm too busy to do the big things. I'm too busy to look at, like, can I negotiate with a new vendor? Can I source this from another region? And I think I really like this, looking at it as a promotion, because everybody just has more high-stake things to look at and spend their time on. I, at least, choose to look at it as an opportunity to free up time to work on the important stuff. It's negotiating with vendors, getting the real understanding internally between procurement and sales, because we still always have the problem of things that happen and are not recorded in any system. Like, we have a salesperson making a deal with one of your customers and the system doesn't know about it, and then AI doesn't do anything for you. So spending the time on the relationships and I think it's really, now it's so important to keep all data up to date. It's just not same as with the architecture aspect that Halla was talking about, just having all things, all decisions in some system. That is now the crucial part of any operation, so that the technology can really do its job.
Yes. So I want to spin off that idea of having your data up to date, because also another buzzword that gets tossed around a lot, that is my personal, maybe least favorite business buzzword of the last few years, is like a single source of truth, right? But I think you're touching on something just really, really important for both integrations and prod development and use of a system like AGRs. You need to get the people in your organization on board with, no, you're not going to keep like your special spreadsheets to yourself. And our customers talked about this very compellingly in the summit. And by the way, like, we'll have the summit of videos available to everybody, and a little bit later, probably the beginning of next week, so that you can check out those videos if you weren't able to make the summit. But our customers really talked compellingly about how a system like AGR was able for them, or enabled them, to tie together these different teams and, make it sort of visible for them. But I think, let's start with you on this. How important, especially now in the days of AI, is a single source of truth for your supply chain data, since that's what we're here talking about?
Yeah, I echo what you're saying, like single source of truth. AI just needs context, and it needs to be documented somewhere. So giving like information on decisions you make gets so much more important. Single source of truth, I mean, I don't know. AI is good at also looking at, they have two pieces of information and they can flag that. Yeah, I don't know where you're going with the single source of truth, but the quality of data, that is true. It's just what you need for all of this to work. It's what really matters. You cannot keep because I make decisions out of gut feeling all the time, and because I rely a lot on my instinct, but AI cannot replace that if I don't give them access to my context, to my information for what I've learned throughout the years and how I make decisions, so that you know that when you made this negotiation with this vendor, you were really pushing them and things like that. If nobody knows that except for you, then no technology can help.
Yeah, I think we can't ever outsource our instinct or our experience to AI, right? And we need to use it to be very critical of what AI presents to us, or any data or any program, right? That part. Because if we try to take the context out of our head and explain it to somebody, I don't know if you've ever tried this, why, somebody's like, oh, I feel like this situation is a bad situation. And then people are like, why? And you try to explain it to someone, it's very hard. It's very hard for us to access that information, but we should still trust it, in my opinion, when we're dealing with AI. I use AI all the time and I'm still like, no, that's nonsense. I know that's nonsense because of my own personal experience and my own training and learning. And I think that sort of interaction is crucial in the human AI. We can't outsource that. But Halla, back to you about this sort of idea. Maybe with integrations, it makes more sense because the data needs to be flowing between the ERP in this case and a program like AGR's.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you're especially thinking about the single source of truth analogy. I think it makes sense until you get into reality, because everything is about exceptions. And this is kind of where the game has been elevated for, I'd like to say, maybe since April. We've seen MCP protocols move exceptionally fast. So all of a sudden AI isn't anymore about just having your data in place. It's about having your data in place, but also documenting the exceptions of your data and all of the processes that handle your data. The single source of truth has all of a sudden expanded into these multiple dimensions of rules that can outrule your single source of truth. So this is kind of what we deal with a lot in terms of implementing data. It's this is my master data, but then you might want to be looking at vendor lead times from this dimension here. So what we've tried to do really well now to make sure that, I mean, we're just keeping up and we're trying to stay ahead, is that we are aiming now towards iterative documentation on how our data model for single source of truth can be manipulated into these different directions by the exceptions that lead them, so that our users can benefit from, agents and MCPs in this space, and making sure that we keep a smooth implementation process.
I'm going to ask for one clarification, because not everybody is as embedded in you in AI. Can you please explain to our audience what MCP protocols are?
Yes, so MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And what that means is basically how you can document your infrastructure, document your data layers to agents, so how they know how to interact with them, so they know where to fetch data from. So MCP servers today are great destinations to orchestrate and extract data to leverage into your processes.
To add on that, MCPs, what they do, for me at least, enable me to work where I want to work.
Yes.
You have multiple systems, any company is running multiple systems. There are some to have everything in one system, but then reality is not like that. And sometimes you're doing a task and you need information from another system, or you're just simply in Excel doing your thing and you need information from somewhere else. So MCPs really help you talk to your systems in human language where you are working. So whether you're writing an email, where you're project managing something in your ticketing system, or whether you're doing some ad hoc calculations in Excel, like when you have access to all your systems through MCP, you can work where you are comfortable, where you are in your flow. So it's not only it's all about making the data available to agents, but it's also just really making it more available to you as a person in a place where you're comfortable working, where you're in your flow. And when you find that aha moment where you start to interact with your system, like that you have worked with for years, and you need to remember to push this button and write this and do this, you can just write in your AI tool of choice, like, do you have a connection to this system? Can you help me do this task? They can explain to you, yeah, you need to do this. Do you have this information? And I'm like, yeah. And your day goes on. So you don't have to stop your day to trying to figure out how to work this system that you haven't logged into for a while. So I think MCPs, and this is what we are launching for AGR this fall. Some of our customers are already working with it, trying it out with us. Is making all the AGR data available through MCPs, AGR MCP server, and just enabling you to talk to the AGR data where you are working. Because in reality, we want everything to happen in AGR, and us in the product team, we imagine that AGR is the center of our planner's universe. But we know that they work in emails a lot. There's a lot of information that comes through email, and you want to automate how do you push that into AGR. And enabling this protocol and this way of working will really elevate, letting you work where you want to work. Some things really make sense to sit in AGR and do a job and really analyzing data. Sometimes you just want a little bit of the data and you can bring it to where you're working.
I think that's actually, there are two things that I want to pick up on, but I want to pick up on that one first and maybe make it in a way that some of our viewers might understand. AGR has always been about letting data flow freely between apps and between systems, and we've never been very gatekeepy, meaning locking people out of their own data. And I think this, being able to connect to whatever AI the user is comfortable using is just a continuation of that philosophy. It's not a new, and Sigrún, you mentioned this at the beginning, this is sort of the mindset of AGR from the beginning. And I also think it's really important to point out to anybody listening, that means that if your organization has a trusted AI, you work with whatever that trusted or vetted or okayed AI system may be, it means that you be able to connect very smoothly and easily, and you aren't limited to only using, because I know a lot of systems I use, they have their own internal AI, but they don't allow you to connect to an external AI, and therefore you miss that sort of blending of different systems together. So I think that's really important to think about anytime you're evaluating any system you want to bring in. Is there AI? How does it connect? Are you able to use the external connector to your AI of choice, or are you stuck within their system? And so that just personally, I think when evaluating something like AGR, it's an important question to think about now that we are in this AI reality that we're in. Halla, did you have something you wanted to follow up on?
No, I think Sigrún summed it up all right, or really good. I think I heard someone the other day just describe MCPs as a consolidation platform for complexity, and it's basically like the USB-C port for your AI utilization, which I think is a really good analogy.
I mean, personally, I love AI as a documentarian and also somebody who teaches very complex things, because no explanation, no matter how good you think it is. So Sigrún, you mentioned our own explanation in the system of calculations is going to hit everybody, right? No one explanation or no one understanding is going to hit everybody. But I think what AI opens up and connections like this is you can give your context and your way of understanding it and get a response that better matches your understanding of the situation. And I just think that's so important. And just sort of equalizes so many things, right? You don't have to know statistical forecasting in order to understand. You can really just be like drawing it out, and through your exploration, you may actually come to understand it much, much better. I wanted though to wrap back around to something Halla said, because I know it's something that like AGR is working on and has always been working on, is that are going to happen no matter what. Right? The world is not set up for a single source of truth, because there is no single truth in the world, right? And so it caught my attention because it's like, oh, this to me is a real plus of AI, is like, and maybe this is more also, Sigrún, speaking to your firefighting thing, is like, okay, so the non-exception stuff, we can just let it go, let it run, we trust it. And we can really look at the exceptions, which to me are much more interesting. And also like means that our focus isn't on what's working fine. It's really working on exceptions, both in the data side, the integration side, Halla, and in the sort of day-to-day running of a supply chain, right? And so, Sigrún, as far as like the running of a supply chain side, how do you think of, I a little bit know the answer because I know what's coming up in our system, but I want you to answer because you're the chief product officer. Like, how do you think of managing something about like exceptions as far as, you know, lead time exceptions or out of stock exceptions or things like that within a system like AGR with the support of AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is another thing that we've always been about, like managed by exception. It's the first thing I learned when I started here 12 years ago, so it's no new thing. But then it was about going through a report set up from a specific rule and looking at the thing that is outside of the rule you had set up. Now that is really being elevated, and I think what maybe the rules won't change so much, but what will change is how it's being flagged to you and how it is being interpreted. It's the context the products will give you. Like, why do you think this is an exception? What should your action be? Like, to have something really actionable that you should do in this instant. And it's also about, like, when you have all this data, how do you use AI in a way that doesn't dump all this data to you and really sums up the important things and signals out the noise, and that is the tricky part. It is, how does this fit into the flow of a real person's daily life? And I think AI will really help with the explaining part of it. To make it understandable to humans.
Yeah, I think that noise to signal explanation is a really good one, where AI can help filter out the data noise. You know, and it goes back to what I was saying, that data is just data. You know, you have to know what's important and what's not important and stuff like that. So what about you, Halla? What do you think about this whole idea of like noise to signal or like standard to exception as far as integrations go?
Yeah, I think what can be, if we just think about onboarding new systems or onboarding AGR, what is usually the biggest issue is that you notice that some data entities may be broken, but maybe the data entity is coming from a data source which is over millions of lines, and navigating the complexity of where is it coming from, what causes the fragmentation used to be a really complex process, especially if you think about the communication back and forth with the data owner. So what AI has really done for us is just to simplify this entire process, being able to have the centralized overview of exceptions and channeling them in the right places to the right people that can take care of the problem with all the relevant information is something that used to maybe take days, but now we can gather this information in minutes. It's definitely just, this is where AI is strongest, to recognize patterns, recognize fragmentation from standardization. So we've really been leveraging this just to speed up what used to be, stranded on human communication and debates, not weeks time at a time.
Yeah. I also find AI really, I like the pattern recognition part because it's something I think is like really interesting. I also like AI when I recognize a pattern and then I go and check Like, is this just the pattern I'm seeing, or is there an indication that this is a wider issue? And I just love that because I do trust my gut feelings and I do trust pattern recognition. I think humans are exceptionally good at pattern recognition, but it's always nice to go and be like, okay, so I see this item that's behaving weirdly, or this group of items that are behaving weirdly. Go to your AI and be like, is this really a group level? Is it a vendor level? Like, what is going on with this? And I think AI really opens up our ability to gut check ourselves.
Yeah, I use it that way all the time. Like,
all the time.
And I use AI to help me, like not just be my feeling, but like to present it in a data-driven way, to just fact check myself and like, yeah, am I missing something? And it really boosts my confidence. Like when I'm making a big decision or presenting something big, like, yeah, it can really boost my confidence that I can check myself.
And I really like how you put, Randi, with just like pattern recognition, because humans are really good in recognizing patterns. But what AI is changing is like the pattern generation. But then Sigrún is saying like the confidence is knowing what is causing it used to be impossible because the scope of generating a pattern can be infinite. So it's now nice to be able now to see like, I see a pattern, but what really is causing this pattern?
Exactly. Is it something is in my control? And I think this is really important for any user. Is it something that's in your control, or is it something that's out of your control that you somehow need to adjust for? Right. I think that kind of thing is just such, confidence builder and a stress reliever for AI. Like, okay, this is outside of my control. It still sucks, but I need to like deal, maybe it's an integrations issue. It's outside of my control. I need to contact the integrations people and they can fix it, you know, that kind of stuff. And it just helps you pinpoint better what may be causing, because humans are kind of bad at figuring out causation, or at least, you know, we won't go there. That's very like dorky science stuff. Okay, so we only have a few minutes left, and there's been like so much that we've covered that's just been fabulous. And I just want to let people know that the recording will be available on our YouTube channel, you know, tomorrow, maybe the day after. So, you know, if you weren't able to catch it all, or you just want to refresh or go back through, it will be available on the YouTube channel, as are, and you know what, let me go ahead and pop up the link to the YouTube channel for you, because all of our, excuse me, I'm sorry, all of our past AGR webinars are on there. And so, you know, the YouTube channel is available for you anytime to go back and revisit or learn new things as well. As we're wrapping up, I would like then to ask each of you to do something that humans are incredibly bad at, which is foreseeing the future, but it's always an interesting discussion to have. And I know there are some things that are actually planned in the AGR future. So where do you think, Halla, I'll start with you, AI is going to take us next?
I think AI is, if you think about it, it's just our patience is getting shorter. We want things instantly. We have less and less patience for like figuring things out on our own. But at the same time, we want more. We want more information. We want more information for more specific and more refined systems. So what I think AI is kind of taking us is towards a path, like Sigrún was pointing out earlier, it's just less UI heavy and more like take me through what this system should do. Take me through what your expertise are, where you're delivering mode and value for me. So what I think AI is moving towards is being able to combine all of these refined, iterative, specific information which, for example, systems like AGR produce, and leverage it in a centralized way without having to navigate a complex UI and learned UI where you have to really dig into it. So I think AI is taking us towards solving bigger problems at a time with more information mode without the complexity of navigation in some UI which you can kind of build based on your strengths as a person.
And just to clarify for people, UI means user interface. Yeah, I'm just very conscious of like, you know, acronyms can be lovely, but they can be confusing as well. What about you, Sigrún? What do you think about the future as far as AI in the product and where is it going to take us?
Yeah, I'm really obsessing about this connectivity and also this conversational approach to talking to systems, because I think what Halla is saying, like, it's completely true. Our patience is like getting, reduced a lot, and just to be able to, like, AI will make the capabilities of all of these systems so much accessible to everyone. You don't have to start a complicated IT project to connect these two systems together to get better cash flow predictions, for example. You have so much more control to utilize your data, to export it, to give it to another stakeholder, to like support your claims. So I think connectivity of different data sources, we have gotten so far. I mean, to get AGR up and running is like no problem at all compared to how it used to be. But then the ability to connect other systems together in an ad hoc basis is really, it's going to be the next big thing. And you cannot really understand the powers of it until you just hit those moments where it really helps you.
Well, there's so much more that I would love to dig in, like the tech deficit idea, because I think AI totally shifts that, you know, what that looks like, the idea of documentation and how important it is, you know, stuff like that. There's just so much more that we could get into, but our time is coming to a close. And I know for me it's lunchtime, so I'm also getting quite hungry. So I just want to thank you both for being here. For those of you who are interested, I've just popped a button where you can click to go directly to our homepage if you want to learn more about AGR. But I hope today not only have you learned about AGR, but you've learned about, you know, the cutting edge of AI for integrations, for supply chain management, where it's going, what it is helping in, what maybe it's not helping in. And hopefully we've been able to address some of your concerns about, you know, AI. We all panic a little bit, and that's completely understandable. And as I mentioned, this will be up, recording of this will be up on our YouTube channel, and I will also announce that on our social media platforms. So if you weren't able to catch it all or you want to revisit, you'd be able to do that. But thank you so much, Sigrún, and thank you so much, Halla, for joining us today. And please, for everybody who's watching, keep an eye out for our next Chain Reactions live stream. In the meantime, have a great day. Bye.